we're going to get started. I just want to hit the record button. And welcome everyone to another installment of the Vanguard Employer Education Series. Today's topic is, we're excited about this. I think this is really super relevant in the times we're in right now. Utilizing Zoom for team engagement. I think most employers are having some experience with this right now and trying to figure out the best way to utilize technology for these purposes. Just quick, if you haven't been on one of our educational series events before, welcome. My name is Ed Probst I'm the founding partner of the Vanguard Insurance Agency, which is in our 21st year this year. So we are an employee benefits consulting firm. We help our clients with achieving employer of choice status through benefits consulting, compliance solutions, HR resources, technology, and education. And this is a good segue into, this is part of our education model. Our model is very, very employee-centric in the fact that we provide one-on-one education to all of our clients' employees. However, from an employer perspective, there's a lot of things that are changing from legal, from a compliance, from an HR standpoint. And then there's also a lot of different things that employers need to know to help provide the best resources for their employees. So that's what the whole goal for the Employer Education Series is. We have planned these to be bi-weekly events, which we are sticking to, with the exception of every once in a while we come up with a really super timely topic, and we want to squeeze an extra one in there. So that being the case for next week, some of our upcoming events, next week we will have Ed McWilliams from Serini Associates, and he will be providing an update on the recent executive order regarding payroll tax holiday and unemployment benefits, and the extension of unemployment benefits that are scheduled to take effect on September 1st. Still waiting for some guidance on that, but Ed's going to bring us up to speed next week, and hopefully we'll have more guidance by then that he can really get granular on it. That's next week on the 26th. On September 2nd, we have an exciting a speaker, Michael Goldberg from Knockout Networking, and he is going to talk about knockout networking in a remote world, which I think is a fantastic topic. On September 16th, we will have the president of HealthPass, executive director and president, Vince Ashton. He will be speaking on defined contribution health plans, and HealthPass has been a partner of ours for 20 plus years now, and there's a lot of valuable content that Vince will supply. And on September 30th, we will be having, in advance of the Medicare open enrollment, which takes place on October 15th, we will have a seminar on Medicare 101. So you don't want to miss that one. Some housekeeping. We do want to continue to be as relevant as possible with these topics. So we're going to ask that you please, if there's any topics you want to hear about, type them in the chat. We plan on sending out a survey to our past participants in the near future with this same type of information. But if you are, if there is a topic that you would like to hear about, please type it in the chat, and we'll do our best to make sure that we provide that content at some point in the future. Also, we are recording this, and we'll plan on sending out both the slide presentation that Crystal provided, as well as a recording of this after the event. So you'll be able to reference this again after this presentation. And if you have any questions along the way, I will be monitoring the chat for Crystal. So you can type them in there. We can stop along the way and take a question or two. And then at the end, we'll have a formal Q&A. So with that, I want to introduce our speaker for today. And that is Crystal Lee from Searchmasters. And Crystal is the VP of Recruitment with Searchmasters, where she does full desk recruiting, specializing in placing accounting, real estate development, legal, and HR industries. She's an avid user and participant of Zoom for quite a while now. So she has been utilizing this as a tool in her endeavors for quite some time. She now uses Zoom on a pro account level on a daily basis for maintaining team communication, interviewing candidates, meeting clients, participating in networking events, hosting committee meetings, and even hosting birthday parties. So Crystal is also actively volunteers at the New York State Society of CPAs. She's the president of the Next Gen Committee for the Manhattan Bronx chapter, and she provides resources, events, and professional development opportunities for up-and-coming next generation CPAs. Most recently, Crystal was named to their 40 under 40 for her contributions towards the advancement of the accounting profession. So, impressive resume. Welcome, Crystal. I want to get right into this. Like I said, this is a great topic. So I will turn it over to you to get going.
All right. Well, thank you, Ed. I'm getting some feedback. So if I could ask everyone to mute, that would be great. All right. Sounds like just about everybody's muted. Ed, if you could also mute everyone for me, that would be awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for that introduction. So in the meantime, like while we're getting that going, more immediately, like before I hop in, you know, if there are immediate questions that you already have, like feel free to dump them in the chat. Like we're going to go ahead and be monitoring the chat room every now and then and just seeing if we can go ahead and address those in real time. Okay. Without further ado, today we are discussing the utilization of Zoom for like team engagement and retention. And I really thank Ed and Tommy for bringing me in to have a chat. Just a quick overview of what I'm targeting today is, you know, introductions about myself, as well as like, you know, speaking about retention and that how it starts with hiring. Then I'll go into team engagement and then some Zoom tips and tools that I recommend that have been really helping me out. I'm seeing the questions come in, so definitely keep them coming. I will address them in just a moment. So as for the introduction, Ed already did a really great like deep dive into my bio. More recently, I have also added Zoom interview like readiness, like, you know, consultant for a lot of candidates because there are more candidates on the market these days. And, you know, they need more help with getting Zoom interview ready. And it's just something that evolved due to the nature of the ever-changing times around the pandemic, right? So before I even got to the point where I was using the pro account, I was using the basic account, which most of you know as the free account. And just to kind of go through the difference between the two, the main one that is the most important difference between the free Zoom account versus the pro, which is pro is just that next level up, that first level where you're starting to actually pay for a subscription. The main difference is a 40-minute meeting versus letting a meeting run for like 24 hours with like 100 attendees. So like, you know, if you're finding yourself having to have meetings that are longer than 40 minutes, do yourself a favor, pay the extra money, like so that like you don't have to stress about it. It looks better on your behalf that like it's not showing you as like, you know, someone who's really cutting corners during a time when candidates and employees are really noticing employers who are adapting and able to adapt quickly to working from home, working remotely, and then incorporating new tech such as Zoom or Microsoft Teams or any of one of these like, you know, video conferencing platforms, right? So I really want to emphasize that retention starts with hiring, right? Candidates are noticing the number one question that candidates are asking me these days are, hey, does that employer, you know, have a really good setup for working remotely, working from home, and you know, what are their plans with continuing that, you know? And I have to admit, it's ever changing. There's not one answer for any one of my clients or any one employer, right? Because Some businesses are more open than others. Some businesses can have more of that social distancing in place to bring people back into the office, right? So it's a matter of being flexible, right? And understanding how to use technology like Zoom to really make your candidates as well as your employees feel as though you've got a game plan, you somewhat know what you're doing, right? And you're not afraid to incorporate these things because initially employers were thinking, you know what, like we're shut down in New York City, and the more immediate surrounding tri-state area, maybe all we have to do is just figure this out for a few months, like the first 3 months, and then we'll be back in the office, right? And we're all noticing that that's not exactly the case, and that COVID is probably going to be around for at least another year before like even a vaccine comes along, right? So more and more you're having to come up with plans of how are we going to continue working from home? Like, are we going to have to maybe provide a stipend, to set everyone up to work from home properly? Are we having to give up our office, right? And more employers are finding that utilizing Zoom is one of the key tools that have really helped them continue staying in front of their team and being engaged during this time, right? So just a quick couple of meeting tips. Ideal settings, right? On the right side here of my presentation, these are the ideal settings. Like, I would just recommend definitely requiring a meeting password. That's like automatic now with Zoom. They incorporate that into their latest update. Definitely generate like an automatic meeting ID. Don't use your personal ID because like basically anybody who has that personal ID can come into your meeting. So I just recommend using a meeting ID that would just automatically generate. Have all the videos off. Like at the beginning, if you're super comfortable, you're like ready to go on camera every time you turn on Zoom, great. But I have like 3 barriers to entry, like before I even go on a Zoom. First of all, I have the setting with like the host video being off. I also have this handy dandy like camera cover. I don't know if you guys can see that there, where I can just like attach it to my laptop and then close it if I need to, turn it back like if I want to be ready. And the other place is like when you guys came in and before Ed allowed for you to come into like the waiting room or the meeting, there's actually a button that says like, oh, like, test your computer audio. That actually doesn't just bring up your computer audio, but it brings up all of your computer settings. Already automatically setting your camera to camera off, you can go into hitting that button, and then from there, adjusting your video settings before you come into the room, just making sure that like, you have like a background that's somewhat like, somewhat professional, or maybe you want to turn on your virtual background and the lighting's great today, yay, right? Just like one last check before you actually go on camera. In terms of audio, make it open for everybody to sign on either via their telephone or computer audio. The more options, the better when it comes to audio. I don't really like think too much over like the calendar setting, but an able waiting room is going to be very key, as well as let's see here, let me just make this stamp here. So enable waiting room and only on authenticated users. These are settings where there was a horror story that Tommy D shared with me that I'm not going to go into the details, but at the end of the day, the point was that somebody Zoom bombed a meeting that he was an attendee, not hosting, just where he was an attendee. And that's because these settings weren't on and somebody came on and then just started taking over the meeting. So like to prevent that, you want to enable waiting rooms and you want to make sure that you include only authenticated users of Zoom, right? So these are people who created a Zoom account to be able to enter Zoom. Okay. So, and last but not least, utilizing share screen for reviewing resumes. So I'm just gonna exit out of my presentation like really quick. So I'm gonna stop share. I'm gonna reshare. I have a sample resume that, like, you know, for those of you who are hiring managers, you can definitely use this so that you can actually collaborate with your hiring managers, right? This is a practice that like I do all the time with my candidates now. But from an employer perspective, if you're HR, you're not in front of your team, you guys are collaborating via Zoom and to actually like look at someone's resume. So you can easily like pull up somebody's resume. No one has to have a printer at home to print out paper. You just pull this up here, you know, grab the annotation bar and then just start like, you know, making comments like, oh, like, you know, like this is, you know, great longevity at this firm. And then like, oh, like maybe you had some keywords that you really liked, like, oh, this candidate had like really good like experience with SEC filings and 10K and 10Qs, right? So this is something that you can use with your hiring team when you guys are looking at resumes apart, and also like engage other members of, you know, your company at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to stop share here and then go back to my other screen, go back to the session. All right, so in the meantime, we'll go on to the next slide. So once again, retention starts with hiring. And if you were to have a candidate that you were interviewing and you brought up the resume like that, I guarantee you they'll be like, oh, wow, like this employer, they're on top of it. They really know how to utilize Zoom. And so it gives them that image that you already, right from the beginning, when they first meet you, that you're already like, you know, demonstrating that you are with the times, adapting to like, you know, ever changing tech, adapting to the conditions that the pandemic has spurred up, and having to think like creatively, right? Now, some of the questions that I saw in the chat room already were about team engagement. And to start with team engagement, I want to emphasize the importance of consistency, right? Like it starts from the top, right? Like have a specific date, have a specific time, have your specific like, you know, frequency. Are you meeting twice a week? Are you meeting 3 times a week? Maybe you're meeting daily, right? But no matter what you do, stay consistent, as well as being present, right? Like being present doesn't show up and then I turn off my camera. The whole point of Zoom is that your team wants to see you. They want to interact with you, right? And this goes all the way from the top, you know, CEO, all the way down to, you know, like, you know, your part-time workers, your temp workers, right? Because you really want to show that team environment, that team engagement, right? So first of all, consistency and being present are the two most important things I want to emphasize when you want to start thinking about team engagement and utilizing something like Zoom for team engagement, right? The key to picking a day, picking a time, picking a frequency is that if you guys haven't noticed, the days are starting to blur if they haven't started blurring for you already. And so, you know, I've had coworkers say like, you know, thanks to our like bi-weekly meetings, they're like really able to kind of see like where they are in the week. They kind of almost use it as an indicator that, okay, like today's Tuesday, we're having our team meeting. Oh, we're not having our team meeting today. It must be Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, right? So it's really been helping those who are at home stay in like this new, like habitual mode where they can actually define like what day is what so that it doesn't all blur together anymore, right? And then when it comes to being present, um, some couple of tips to really demonstrate that you're being present, right? Right now, I am looking directly into the camera, right? But if I were to say, for instance, look at Ed, like Ed is actually here for me on screen, right? And if I talk to Ed like this, it doesn't give the perception that I'm actually making eye contact and talking to him directly. But if I look in the camera, then it gives that perception that that's like how I'm making eye contact with you, even though technically I'm not, like his eyes are over here, but like this is actually how people are perceiving, it's just like, the news anchors, right? Like when they're not looking into the camera, you feel like they're not talking to you, right? So like when you talk to people, address them, look directly into the camera. It seems a little weird, but like that's how this kind of camera relationship works. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that everybody from like top to bottom of the company should be finding some way to contribute to the conversation, right? Like maybe you're only having a team meeting once a week, right? That's a full week that you haven't talked to your coworkers until the next meeting, right? And employers notice. How I know this is that um, we put on a panel discussion on how to negotiate with the New York State Society of CPAs. And I collaborated with 4 business owners, and all of them had the same problem, right? Like, how can we recognize and encourage productivity during this time, right? So what they were telling me was basically if someone wasn't engaged on that team meeting, like you went a whole week since the last time you talked to me, you really don't have anything to say? Like that seems a bit like you're not trying, right? So even though you probably are trying and maybe you're just a bit camera shy, like I know that employers are looking for this for their employees, right? So just like if you expect the employees to do it, then it's got to start with you as the employer to be engaging, look into the camera, give everyone an opportunity to chat. And if you're finding that some people aren't contributing, maybe kind of set them aside and give them that feedback like, hey, this is how you can contribute to the meeting, right? Like let's say for instance, something as simple as holding a pen in your hand, right? I know it sounds silly, but when someone's holding a pen in their hand, right, and they're showing that, they are taking notes and whatnot, right? It shows that I'm completely focused on the meeting, right? And focused on what you're having to say rather than, oh, maybe off to the side here, like, oh, I'm on my phone, like, or I'm typing an email, right? If you're not the one having to take the minutes or take notes for that meeting, then you probably shouldn't be, on the phone, texting, muting yourself and like doing all this other work while you're in that moment where it should be a team meeting, right? So one way to show that, you're engaged or seeing if your employees engaged is like, do they like have a pen in their hand? Are they maintaining like, their focus with their eyes? As well as if they are typing, one way that they could also engage is acknowledge it right from the beginning. Hey, I hear what you're saying. I'm going to be doing a lot of typing to make sure that I capture that. Or you needed me to send that email right away. Let me just do that. Like, so if you see that I'm not looking, then like, that's what I'm doing, right? Put it out there. Like so many employers are always expressing communication is key, right? So if you put that out there, people are under that understanding as to why maybe you're not like completely focused on the meeting, then that's okay, right? So another way you can contribute to the conversation is to actually utilize something called like breakout rooms, right? Say, for instance, you have someone that is more shy and maybe they really need it have a one-on-one conversation with you, right? you could do something like breakout rooms. And it looks like this icon down here that I have circled in red. So I'm actually going to stop sharing right now and just do a quick breakout room exercise for those of you who have never encountered breakout rooms. Like, we'll just do a quick test run here. Ed, if you could give me hosting rights, that would be really great. And that way I could set up the room. And then we can go into just a quick, like, tell me who you are. And then, like, you know, one thing that you look forward to during the weekend. Okay, let's see here. Give me a sec. Okay, so this is very key. I just remembered that when it comes to breakout rooms, that you actually have to have like full hosting rights, right? So you have to be the originator of the meeting. So another time that we can go ahead and do breakout rooms is, like, you know, if you guys want to practice breakout rooms, I'd be more than happy to set up an outside meeting with you, and then we can go ahead and do that one-on-one. In the meantime, I will go ahead and give Ed hosting rights back, because in the meantime, I am not able to do that right now. So Ed, you can go ahead and have hosting rights back. And then another time we'll go ahead and practice the breakout rooms, right? But another way that we can also be engaged during this time is getting creative. I've heard so many stories about people getting creative when it comes to how they're doing their Zoom meetings, everything from like karaoke to whiteboard. If you guys came in a bit earlier, you heard that I was doing, like, you know, sharing sound and whatnot. Let me put the presentation back on screen. Okay, so something as simple as, like, hey, you know, you want to actually do like making sound or whatnot. If you do make sound or have the sound shared through your computer, right? So I know a lot of us might have been taking the phone and then setting up like a song and then trying to hold it up to the mic, right? And then trying to play a song that way. But what you can actually do is you can share your sound through the computer sound system itself, right? So how we do that, right? So there's under share screen, this green button in my presentation. Once you hit that, there's an option that says advanced sharing, right? And then you hit this tab that says advanced, and then you could choose like music or computer sound only. Like, because there's a presentation right now, like, you could actually also hit a button in the lower left-hand corner you to share sound. And then you can have your presentation up and share sound at the same time. The key about sharing sound is that if you're recording, you want to choose something that doesn't have like royalty rights, right? So royalty-free music is going to be key, because you don't want to get into like some sort of royalty right battle, especially if you're going to record and then put this up online for people to actually hear and see, right? So like, as you guys can see, like, I'm sharing music now, and you can turn it up as loud as you want, or you can turn it down lower so that you can have the music in the background while talking at the same time. So that's just a quick demo with the sound there. Back to the presentation, some other things that you can do. You can do a whiteboard, right? Doing a whiteboard allows for you to be engaging right from the beginning, right? Like, maybe you guys have a more creative team, or you want to find a way to get more creative. You could do something as simple as have a whiteboard and do like a quick like round or two of Pictionary, right? So like, I would say, like, for those of you who can guess what I'm about to draw, like, just like in Pictionary, you know, like, the first thing you think that this is, I want you to go ahead and type it in the chat room, okay? I'm not going to tell you the category. and you can do something, a quick, simple round. Ready and go. All right, who was the first to get it? Oh, hey, Ed and Tommy, you guys are so quick. Yes, it is Mickey Mouse. Something as simple as that, can be engaging. Like if you're an employer with like graphic designers or whatnot, they can do some pretty amazing things with like just using this feature, right? So we could do something like that to engage the team right off the bat, like just have like a quick like competition, and just like get everybody like pumped up, or like, use the music, right? So going back to the presentation. Okay, so some other team activities. If you want to keep it simple, keep it simple. Simple, like, everybody bring their drinks, have a happy hour via Zoom. That's that. Maybe you guys wear like, have a theme, wear costumes. Yes, there are karaoke competitions. And I actually learned about this from a friend of mine who's a finance director. And she had just started the job. Like she didn't know her team. She had just started the job. And then boom, COVID hit. Everybody had to work from home, right? So they were doing karaoke competitions so that she could actually get to know her team. Like, somebody was like a dad with a daughter at home and they did like a father-daughter duet. Or somebody else might, like be like the quietest person in the office and all of a sudden they're like belting out, right? So these are all fun things that you can do to engage your team, get creative, make them move and not just be sitting like at the desk, right? Like, because they're already doing that like with or without you these days. And sometimes like these creative things is really what helps you stand out. The craziest one I've heard recently is my a friend of mine, their company hired a chef from Colombia to teach them how to make empanadas. Everybody was sent the menu, and these are the ingredients that you need, and everybody got to take a cooking class with this chef from Colombia. And I was just like, that is so awesome, right? So you guys are looking for ideas on how to team engage, like that is something that really sets that bar high, right? And
Crystal.
yes.
Oh, sorry. Hi, this is Linda. That cooking idea is fantastic. I wanted to say sometimes even, low tech ideas, like we at the corporate source, we've been having these monthly, Zoom catch up calls with our headquarters staff. And there was kind of a lull in the conversation and my cat wandered in and I said, oh, does anybody else have a pet who loves to sit on his or her office chair? And immediately 4 other people lifted up a dog or a cat, like, and it became very personal and fun. I think that if there's a silver lining in all this, I think it's getting to know people's children and pets and even, their home offices. You're getting to know people on a much more personalized level, which is a good thing.
Exactly. And additionally, right, like when the employer notices, like you guys are able to see my slides, right? Yeah. Um, like when the employer notices like certain like living situations, right? Not everybody is going to be set up from home to see like, or like to maximize like working from home, right? So like, you as an employer, like so a way to kind of demonstrate that you're maybe looking out for your employee is going, hey, like, I noticed that like maybe they've been like, you know, up against a corner or something, or maybe they've been sitting really awkward. So maybe they don't have a desk where they could actually put their laptop on or something at home. So like, like things like that where it starts like, promoting like engaging conversations like, um, hey, like, are you optimized at home? to actually like, like be the most like, productive in a comfortable setting, right? So things like that is really, on the employer part, like really engaging and also showing that you care. Um, and another way to show that you care about your employees, right? I take this lesson from, like observing a lot of like corporations like in Japan, where they intentionally, like before they start their shift and then like, partway through their shift, they take these stretch breaks, right? So maybe schedule some of that stuff in. And then you can, as a team, like take these stretch breaks together, 5 to 10 minutes, and then like refresh and then get back to it. And I love the idea of like, like embracing the home environment, embracing like, hey, people have kids, people have like, dogs and cats, like, and sometimes like dogs, cats, kids, they're gonna come onto the camera whether or not you anticipated it, right? So like the great thing is that like we're in an environment of like, being truly understanding that we are working from home, that this is not the office, but you know what, we're gonna make the best of it that we can. Right. So really quickly, this is just a quick checklist of like maybe like how to present your best Zoom self. You guys can feel free to use this. And just kind of use this to basically go, okay, like if I am getting ready for this team meeting, I want to make sure that my employees see that, that I am able to get in front of the camera, that I'm able to be that role model of how I want them to present themselves on camera, right? So here's just a quick list, like, background, wardrobe, lighting, framing, eye focus, we already went over that. Acoustics, outside factors, which is like, a great point, bringing up the cats and the kids and the dogs, sometimes even parents, grandparents, right? Here's some quick recommendations on tools, right? Like, so I'm actually having bad lighting today. So I've used and my ring light. This is something, that you could just get on Amazon. It's less than 20 bucks. And this is an alternative for like, when you're having a cloudy, overcast, stormy day. I'm also utilizing a phone stand. Guys, I never knew how much I needed a phone stand until I got one. It changed my life. So I highly recommend that. For those of you in HR that are doing the marketing purchases, or those of you who are in marketing or trying to figure out, hey, should I even do any kind of marketing during this time? What I showed you earlier about the camera cover, this is from my friend Michelle Berdinas from Beeline Legal. She sent this to me saying, this, if anybody needs a camera cover, I could just mail it to you. She put a stamp on it, sent it to me at home. And guess what? Her company name is in front of me all day, every day that I am on this laptop, right? So for those of you who were thinking, how can I get the best bang for my buck these days if I am going to do a marketing like product for my company, highly recommend looking into that. And those camera covers, I'm sure like they're fairly inexpensive. And that's it, guys. Like, like I open it up to any further questions that you might have. Feel free to reach out to me, like connect with me. Here's my contact info. And I'll pass it back over to Ed and see if there's any additional questions.
That was great, Crystal. Thank you so much. Just looking at some of the comments and questions in the chat here. One question was regarding virtual fundraising events. Maybe we could, there's several of us that could weigh in on this, but I'd love to hear yours. I'll throw one out there. We're doing a fundraiser. I'm on the board of Cerebral Palsy of Nassau County, and one of our fundraisers every year is a 5K. And it's normally done in person with peer-to-peer fundraising, but it's an event at Eisenhower Park every year. And this year, obviously, that was very difficult to accomplish. So we created a virtual fundraising 5K. So same peer-to-peer type fundraising will be available. and we'll be building teams and raising funds. But the day of event is going to look a little bit different because it'll be a virtual run. So whether it is, you'll take your kids and go for a run around the neighborhood, or you'll jog in place in your backyard or in your office, or whatever it is most conducive to you. The goal is still accomplished in fundraising and using the peer-to-peer. So I'll just throw that one out. Crystal, any comments on that?
Absolutely. So that was a great suggestion. If we're going to do a fundraiser in the context of Zoom, almost think of it like a telethon, right? Like where you have maybe like employees showing their talents and raising money that way. And that can be done via Zoom. And you could have your link up to where they can donate the funds in the chat room. And that way you can engage your team to share their talents, to perform, or even bring in outside friends of the company to perform as well and raise money that way. If we're doing this in the context of Zoom, that's going to be my more immediate number one idea. The second, I am a huge fan of silent auctions, right? So maybe use Zoom to demonstrate that item that you're auctioning off and have the auction in the chat room. So it wouldn't necessarily be silent in terms of, you'll see people live bidding, but instead of having them sign up on some sort of sign-in sheet, oh, this person, I want to buy this, so I'll write my name down. It'll be live for that one item at that one time. And then, once it closes, that item is sold. So those are my couple of recommendations for fundraisers if you're going to do it within the context of Zoom.
Great. Does anybody else have an idea they'd like to share?
Well, at the corporate source, we're thinking of doing some kind of a book reading, in our case on disabilities and employees working with a disability. So we were looking at doing something during National Disability Employment Awareness Month later in October. And my question really was about trying to figure out how to make it as interactive as possible, whether people can chat in questions to the author or make it engaging so that it's something that people would want to go to, that is sort of an educational component, but it still feels like a special event. So any suggestions or advice would be really greatly appreciated.
I love the idea of bringing the author in, and you might even want to, have that as an auction item with the book, or you could go, hey, maybe you want to be in a breakout room specifically with that author, right? Like the author will come in and do a public reading, an excerpt of a public reading, but maybe at a higher tier, for a certain amount of donation that you make, then you can actually break them out with the author.
Right, almost like a VIP reception type, or a VIP benefit, maybe a sponsor benefit is something, at an enriched level with that book author. That's a really good idea. Thank you.
Hey,
Of course, no problem.
Hey, Linda, what if you did this? What if you actually, so I have a new friend, and she does trusted estate work, and she did a wine and cheese party where she had wine and chocolate pairing, and she had the wine and the chocolates.
That could be bad.
Well, no, yeah, I'm not saying to do specifically that, but she had the products sent to her prospective partners and clients' homes. But in this case, with the book reading, what if everybody got a copy of the book sent to them? Maybe and then if you elevate again, maybe they get an autographed copy of the book if it's relevant. And
right. Well, that's what we were thinking of, so that hopefully people would have read the book in advance and then be ready, to ask questions and so on. But having the author autograph copies for, a higher level of support, that's a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow, any other ideas for making it interactive so that people feel that that it's live, that it's interesting, and that, they're part of an event, even if it's, a virtual event. So,
If I can stay on for a sec with that too, Linda, none of us here are selling Zoom per se. So there's some definite, we've seen, and I'm sure you were on the Excel events through the Imagine Awards last month. And there's different
They did an amazing job, and I did speak to Ken Serini about that, and there were a lot of moving parts, but I thought that they really captured the energy of their events. I've been to a number of their in-person events, so to be able to capture the flavor of the event remotely, I thought was great. And Ken had shared that the one really tricky part was the live component, where if people were watching, it was like the Oscars, when they had the 4 finalists and the presenter in the middle. Ed, I think you were one of the presenters, right?
Yes, I was.
That was a real challenge, Ken said, because, there were a lot of moving parts of making sure everybody was ready and capturing that. But it really was worth it, because it gave that flavor of the real event, and it made it feel like it was happening in real time, and it wasn't just a bunch of taped videos. It felt dynamic. So I thought that they did a really great job, really, really great job on the Imagine Awards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
so there's some different products out there, and we could talk in a different call. Always happy to jump on a call, Linda. So but there's definitely some stuff that is more specific and catered towards the sector as to fundraising and things like that. So for sure.
I do want to mention one thing that was in the comment. I think she had to sign off, but Melissa Greenberger had an interesting comment. She said that her staff has done weekly breaks via Zoom. It's optional, but they did a show and tell one week. They did, one of their clients brought a therapy dog one week. They've talked about books, podcasts, recipes. So going back to that team building theme, that is definitely going on out there, and people are using this. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, and Ed, to run with what you said, the Zoom catch-up calls that we have been having at the corporate source, the first call that was set up, one of my coworkers called me and said, "What do you think it's about? Is it bad news?" And I said, "No, I think it's really a catch-up call. Hey, how's everyone doing out there? What are we eating? Are we exercising? Are we gardening?" And sure enough, that's really what it was. And once people were reassured that they're not going to hear bad news, it's really team building, and it's an opportunity to all sort of hang out once a month for a half an hour together and shoot the breeze together and feel a cohesiveness. I think it really reassured people. So whether it's weekly or monthly or whatever it is, going back to your point, Crystal, if you know when it's scheduled, you can plan around it. And it's almost, a real check-in that's so important to have with everybody. And it's something now that we all look forward to, especially if we're giving, an assignment that the next one will be, hey, everyone, wear your most creative face mask that someone's made for you or whatever. So at least there's some conversation starter, because sometimes conversation can definitely, there can be a lull if there isn't anything specific.
Yep.
Yes, and
So
one
true.
of the examples that I didn't actually get a chance to share earlier was I actually saw my colleagues the other day because we were moving offices. I hadn't seen them in person for months, right, since COVID shut down our office. And when I saw them, I didn't miss them. I didn't miss them because we had been in front of each other via Zoom twice a week consistently. And, it just proved that it was very, very critical to have that moment, like every single week, to have that team connection. I feel like that we are more cohesive as a team during COVID than we were even before COVID. And like, because we were having these, bi-weekly Zoom meetings.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think you know, when you're in an office with the same people every day, you get in the habit of, you know, checking in when you can. When you see somebody, the Zoom, I think, has allowed us all to be a little bit more structured and pay more attention to, okay, like you mentioned before, Crystal, on this day, we're all going to meet, and and it's going to be once a week, and, you know, there's no distractions. This is what we're going to do that day. Whereas in the office, it's, hey, what'd you do last weekend? You run by. What'd you do? You know, how's your family? And you walk away. And then, you know, even business related discussions, they're quick and, you know, stick and move kind of, you know, so now with Zoom, I think it's much more attentive.
Yeah, that's I definitely agree with you, Ed. And Crystal, another good thing that has come out of these Zoom calls that we've had, you know, with our organization is because it's an internal group, it's helped us to be better at Zoom for outside people, because, you know, for plenty of people, this has been the first opportunity to have Zoom meetings. So, you know, we had one of our employees who didn't know it, but his picture on Zoom was always cut. You know, you could only basically see him from the eyes up, and he didn't realize that he needed to adjust his screen. And for someone else, it looked like she was sitting in the dark, and it was just the way the light was hitting. And so these are the things that, in a very friendly, supportive atmosphere, you can say, oh, you know what, you got to raise your screen a little or brighten it. And that way, for other presentations, you're going to be better to the outside world.
Yes, and when, like, that ring light that I got, never knew I needed it until I got it. I'm like, wow, this makes a huge difference. And, you know, it's noticed. It's absolutely noticed. Like, you know, if you come across as someone who knows what they're doing with Zoom, and people turn to you to set that example, and they turn to you for questions regarding that, and it sets
Yeah, good point. All right, we are at 12:55, so I think we're wrapping up unless anybody has any additional comments or questions. Crystal, this was fantastic. Thank you again. I'm making sure I'm looking at the camera right now so that we're making eye contact. That was a great tip. But thank you again. We will send out the deck and the recording to Crystal's presentation and make sure we provide her contact information. So if anybody wants to connect with Crystal directly, we'll make sure we provide that for them to do so. So thanks again. Reminder, next week, our presentation will be on the recent executive order and how that relates to unemployment benefits and the payroll tax holiday. So everybody enjoy the rest of your day and your upcoming weekend, and look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Tommy.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Crystal.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.
That was great, Crystal.
Did you want to stop recording?
I am trying to.